Let's talk about what this means now for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, let me hit my little number one sound.
Play your number one.
Yeah.
Number one.
We got five more things. We got
yeah.
5 more things you need to know. We got 5 more things you need to know.
Yeah, one of them being that I forgot to say the 5
That's
more
okay.
things.
That's okay.
But yeah, we got 5 more things, and one of them's going to be the Grizzlies. So we talked about sort of saying goodbye to Desmond, our moments with Desmond.
I'm not done saying goodbye.
Never can say goodbye.
I'm not done saying goodbye. I'm gonna miss Des, man.
It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
So many good moments. Like, I mean, it is just a bummer. Like, unis are kind of like they were the Thunder, but they were on that same trajectory, right? Like, they were the Thunder before the Thunder, and we were gonna be what they are now.
I said it to Michael Leaves. By the way, digression real quick.
Yeah.
Totally unrelated. There was a big political wedding in New York this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary Clinton's former chief of staff married the son of George Soros.
Okay.
Who's like the big financial guy for the Democrats. And I was reading the story about it in the New York Times, and it said the music at the wedding, it was in the Hamptons, everybody who was anybody was there.
Yeah.
Said the music was provided by Boys to Men. And I was thinking, like, what do they sing at a wedding? They don't sing It So Hard to Say Goodbye. They don't sing I'll Make
Into
Love
the
to
Road,
You.
yeah.
No, they can't sing Into the Road.
Right, yeah. All their
It's a
songs are
wedding.
about breakups. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, totally unrelated, but it made me think about Boys to Men. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's sad to see Des go. So, but we gotta turn the page, man. Shout out Bob Seger. We got to figure out what's next and how the Grizzlies are gonna move forward. You said in the chat, you'll be disappointed if they don't bring in somebody new for the starting lineup.
Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and put it out there. For me, the ideal starting line, like all things considered, and we all assume that more moves are likely to be made.
Yep.
I think my ideal starting lineup, not going into next season because we know Zack Edey's going to miss the beginning of the season, but my ideal starting lineup next season at some point when they are at full strength would be Ja. Move Jalen Wells to the 2,
okay.
and he's your starting 2 now, because then you have a guy with size next to Ja that can defend, which I think is super important. Like we talked about, how far can the Ja Desmond Bane backcourt go just because of the size of the backcourt? It's a smaller backcourt.
Yeah.
Well, now your backcourt is a little bit bigger if Jalen Wells is slotted over to the 2.
Can he facilitate if Ja, like the way Dez had to a lot last year? If Ja's getting doubled or whatever, like can Jalen be that secondary ball handler? Also,
by the way, just speaking of Jalen Wells, massive summer coming up for him, and I was excited to see him say that because he's obviously had the scary injury to miss the end of last season and miss the playoffs. He said he's good to go for Summer League when he was sitting in here with studio.
His cast is off and everything. His arm's good.
Yeah, he joined us in studio and told GP that he's going to be ready for Summer League. I think it'll be a huge Summer League for him. We remember Dez's Summer League after his rookie year when they just put the ball in his hands and said, go, this is your team. You're running the show.
Yeah, good call.
And it improved his game a ton. I think that was huge for Desmond Bane. I think this summer's got potential to be huge for Jalen Wells, so looking forward to his summer league. So my starting lineup, I'd go Ja, Jalen Wells, a 3 yet to be determined, an awesome wing.
Not Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
I don't know if he's a starting level player.
He was last year.
I know. On a championship team,
he won 2 titles.
I mean, clearly they don't. Clearly, the Magic didn't think he was a starting.
I think he didn't shoot the ball as well last year. He's like career 38% on 3-pointers, and last year he was like 34%.
And to your point that you made earlier, like that he had a down year last year. Their offense wasn't good last year.
I wonder how much of that was like, first of all, you're not playing with LeBron and Nikola Jokic anymore. Right. Second of all, though, you're playing with all these other guys who can't shoot either on the Magic. So, like, they know one guy can shoot, and you're going to get doubled and get run out on more often.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that means they go out and get somebody. Somebody in the chat said, what about Gigi at the 3?
I think Gigi's just got a lot to prove. I
think you need a veteran there.
Gigi's got a lot to prove. I'll leave it at that.
I wouldn't want Jalen and Gigi starting next to each other. Mm-hmm. A second-year player and a third-year player.
Yeah,
both out there trying to start. If you're going to compete this year,
I'm completely with you. Yeah. So again, starting lineup, my ideal would be Ja, Jalen, a 3 yet to be determined, Jaren and Zack Edey. Do
you go? So we saw last year or this year in the playoffs, late in the season, Jalen got hurt. Grizzlies went to that lineup with Ja and Scottie Pippen together, and they're not terrible. Mm-hmm. Would you?
Scotty's important.
Would you think Scotty's a big piece at the 2, Jalen at the 3?
Again, your backcourt is small. Like, you got a small backcourt. I think that's just back to the problems that you might have ran into with John Dez as your starting backcourt. So I don't know. I think that there is a starter that's not. I think there's a starter yet to be determined that's not on this team right now. Yeah, for sure.
Do you
agree with that?
Yeah, I saw a lot of names thrown around of like people that were possibly available for these teams to go get. John Hollinger had a column today in The Athletic where he listed a bunch of guys. I mean, you're talking about you could do like sign and trade for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, that type of player. The other thing in all this, Bennett, is you mentioned Zack Edey's out for the start of the season, and we don't know how long he's out for.
Right.
It could be a month, could be a week, could be 3 months. Who knows, right? Like we've learned from previous seasons watching these guys try to figure out, we don't know when guys are coming back. Mm-hmm. So do you try and get by with, do you use that draft capital to go get a center or to go get somebody who can get you through until Zack Edey comes back? Or do you or do you try to split the difference? Like you try to get somebody serviceable at the 3, a rotation guy, and somebody who helps out at the 5. Because I think that's also to our point, like you need 1 through 11 rotation guys.
The other thing too about the Desmond Bane trade is like it's not something you think about, but you lost 6 rebounds a game with Desmond Bane right there. I mean, that's more rebounding out the window because he's a pretty good rebounder for guard. You're going to have to address it because I think, BC, if he's back to his true self next season, you feel comfortable starting him and Jaren next to each other. But again, that's a big if. Like, is he going to be ready? We assume he's going to be good and ready to go with that knee injury he had last year. And I think we'd all feel comfortable with him in that starting lineup until Zack Edey comes back. But then your depth is just, as far as rebounding, you just don't have it at all, really. So it's something that I think like their biggest needs in this upcoming offseason for sure are shooting and rebounding. Like that's the biggest things that they got to address this upcoming offseason.
What about defense?
Well, clearly.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah, clearly that. So I saw Parker Fleming had an interesting tweet yesterday. Said that the thing that I'm fascinated with is who does Zach Kleiman see as the guy that can be the 3rd best player on the team behind Ja and Jaren? Because we clearly, don't think it was going to be Desmond Bane.
How about this? Right now,
is it a 3-and-D wing? Is it a ball handler? With this, trending toward a retool, like which way is that going to go?
Right now, who do you think is the 3rd best player on the team? How about that?
It might be Scotty. It might be Scotty.
Might be Zach.
It might be Edey, actually. It might be Edey.
The guy who struggled for most of the season. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Edey, Scotty. I don't know.
It's why his injury just really sucks because, I'm a fan, and I think that he's got a chance to be a really good NBA player, but now he's got this bit of a setback. He's going to miss whole summer, which I thought it was going to be a big summer for
Might
Edey.
Be Santi.
Depending on what happens there. Him. Yeah, do they re-sign Santi? Are they more inclined to re-sign Santi? I know he's not a rebounding big, but it's big depth, right? And he's a guy that you can start. We've seen him start next to Jaren before.
My favorite Santi thing is like once a game he throws an unnecessary behind the back pass. Like what are you doing, man? He just whips it in there with a little bit of pizzazz. Some of the names I were mentioned of. So if you move Cole Anthony, because I guess that's part of this whole thing too. Like, do you feel like Cole Anthony could be I
think he's is he going into like year 2 of a 3 year?
Well, he's got 2 years left, but the second year is a team option. So it's essentially could be the last year of his contract because the team can decide if they want to keep him or not. So it's basically an expiring contract.
Okay, and then KCP is going to be on year 2 of a 3-year deal with a player option in 2027.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, though, let's mention this, is that, Jaren Jackson's going to be a free agent, Jaren Jackson Jr., or not a free agent this summer, but he's eligible to sign an extension.
Yep.
And for the Grizzlies to sign him to a maximum extension, something's going to have to give in the next couple months to free up enough money for that to work.
Yeah, I was watching. Bobby Marks had a really great breakdown of it yesterday. And he said that he would expect, if they do in fact intend to sign Jaren to that long-term deal this summer, they're probably going to have to clear more money. You could maybe see that with Brandon Clark, although I love Brandon Clark on this team, and I love Brandon next to Jaren. I would want Brandon Clark back if he's healthy. John Conchar is another name. But he also mentioned that the Grizzlies, now they have this 16th pick in this upcoming draft where they didn't previously have a first-round pick. They could also clear money by trading the 16th pick.
Yeah, because essentially it's slotted in. We know how much the 16th pick makes.
Yeah.
And so that's a cap hold basically for the Grizzlies for the next 4 seasons. X is coming up off. So if you want to clear some more money off the books, the issue there though is then you're just going to kick the can down the road, right? Because if you're trading away that pick, you can't get money back for it. Because the whole point of it is to get rid of money.
Yep.
So you're trading it for a future pick or something.
Yeah, I'm looking at okay, so there's Bobby's breakdown. First off, the thing that starting 5, that is not good enough. So that is not going to be your starting 5 going into next season. If it is, I think that we're all a little worried. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not going to be the starting 5 going into next season.
We know Zack Edey's not going to start next season.
Well, yeah, right, but he will at some point, right? And then you look at the reserves with, Cole. But we haven't talked a lot about the guys coming back in this trade with KCP and Cole Anthony. KCP, we mentioned, had a down year.
Shooting. He was still really good defensively.
He was still really good defensively. And I think a guy that we've talked about just veteran championship experience.
Georgia Bulldog.
Yeah. I think he's a guy you could play next to Ja. He's a guy that I would want on the team for sure. Cole Anthony, up and down season. Remember, it got a little testy in the game at Orlando. That was like our only good win the second half of the season. Was that game? Was it after All-Star break at Orlando?
Yeah, I think it was. They had a weird season, the Magic, because they started out so good, and then everybody got hurt. And then there was these games where you would watch, and Cole Anthony was like the main guy.
Yep.
And that was one of our games. It was after the All-Star break at Orlando. It might have been like the first game after the All-Star break, or it was right after the All-Star break in Orlando. And Cole Anthony is like coming out trying to be like the A1 option on offense.
Right.
The Grizzlies got the win, but Cole Anthony was shooting like crazy and kind of playing in a way that's probably not the best way for him to play. Mm-hmm. The other moving part in all this, before we get back to the Cole Anthony part of it, is we got a new coach. Yep. And there's going to be a different offense and a different system in place, probably defensively also. Does that system better fit Cole Anthony, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Scottie Pippen, some of these other guys, Vince Williams, Gigi? Does that system fit some of these guys better and help maximize what they can bring to this team? And that one we can't really answer. We don't know.
Right.
We know it's going to be more pick and roll. We know it's going to be probably more three-point shooting, but I don't know how that's going to affect these guys. Maybe Cole Anthony is the type of player they're looking for this system.
That's a fair point.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Again, just looking at his numbers last season, they're so all over the place. He did have some nice standout games, but to your point, it was that lineup they had guys in and out, and so when he got some opportunities, he was okay, but when he was more of a role guy, he just wasn't that great for them. Yeah. So we'll see. It did get testy in that game. I'm not sure how much that matters, but
that's right.
There was definitely some beef between him and the Grizzlies last year. So that's just worth keeping an eye on. I don't know if both those guys would be on this team starting next season, but I don't think I'd have a problem with it at all. I want KCP.
But you don't want either of those guys starting.
No. Yeah. No, I do not want either of those guys.
Which means
starting.
The Grizzlies got to go find somebody else to start. And that means maybe trading the 16th pick and some other players or something else to go, or trading any of these. I think the Grizzlies have 10 draft picks in the next 4 years, or 10 first-round picks coming up in the next 5, some crazy amount of picks. I also – it's all relative in the NBA, right? So people were yesterday on Twitter being like, wow, Desmond Bane you got 4 first-round picks for him, and Luka only got 1. I was like, well, yeah, but they also got back Anthony Davis.
Right. An amazing player in his own right. Yeah.
But, Mikal Bridges was 5 first-round picks. It's all relative based on team and need and contract and all that stuff, too. it might not necessarily take the Grizzlies moving 4 first-round picks to get somebody in here that can start. That could be on that. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, for instance, could be a sign and trade.
Yeah,
with the Minnesota
Herb
Timberwolves.
Jones and
Herb Jones.
He's a name that stands out.
I saw Cam Thomas was a name that gets kicked
He's
around
a guy
lot.
we've heard rumors wise, like past couple
Denny
seasons.
Avila is a name that I saw a lot this weekend.
Yep,
on the Blazers.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, PJ Washington could be somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like PJ too. But of course, as far as that, and there's a couple questions folks had in the chat that I wanted to address. Tim Bontemps also had a really nice piece on the Grizzlies and just talking about what's next steps for them. And just to clarify, because again, I think that when you see a trade between, he said this in the open, when you see a trade between the Orlando Magic and the Memphis Grizzlies, maybe sometimes people that talk about the NBA for a living on a national level don't necessarily know how to talk about a Grizzlies Magic trade. I don't know, because I saw some wild takes yesterday.
I think part of it was, so you remember on draft night 2 years ago, there was the woman from Yahoo Sports who said like she gave the Grizzlies an F for drafting Zack Edey. I think part of it is like in the moment you're trying to come up with a hot take, right?
Right.
And you're like,
that's going to go viral.
If you say something that's a little bit out of pocket, people are going to go crazy with it.
Yeah, because the go-to line yesterday was, well, it's a fire sale. They're going to move Ja Morant. Where's Ja Morant going next? And it's like, whoa. That is not what this means at all.
I mean, look, trading your third best player for 4 first-round picks does not mean you're tanking.
No.
It just means you got 4 first-round picks.
No. And so that's why I wanted to highlight these guys that are actually covering it well. And Tim Bontemps had a good piece yesterday, and obviously acknowledged that more star trades are not expected with the Grizzlies regarding Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. He said that his sources are telling him that the Grizzlies are not looking to deal either of their 2 remaining franchise cornerstones, and that the team has spent the last several months clearing salary cap space to compete a renegotiation and extension of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s contract this offseason, preventing him from hitting free agency in 2026. The belief is that an extension will get done, but the Bane trade gives Memphis an avenue to give Jaren Jackson even more on that deal and lock him in long term.
There was another line in that story. Here's a little bit of behind the scenes for these articles you read. When you read things, when somebody says there's a belief or sources say or whatever, that means they probably talked to somebody off the record.
Yeah.
And that somebody called them and was like, hey, look, we're not tanking. This is what's happening. Don't quote me on this. There was another line of that story. The Grizzlies believe Jalen Wells, who finished third in Rookie of the Year voting this past season, can be a long-term starter on the wing, sources said. All right. So, well, who's your source? Somebody from the Grizzlies says, we think Jalen Wells can be a starter. So that answers that question of who's your wing. Where's one wing? Now we got to find the other wing. There was no point in here where it says sources said they think KCP is going to start on the other wing. So I don't know if they're going to move him. They're going to flip him. I feel like at the worst, he gives you depth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think, people, Jaren's obviously a polarizing. He's been with his team for a long time now. He's kind of a polarizing player because he's this amazing big that can't rebound well. And so people just feel some kind of way about that. I just look at it as he's a great NBA player and a great defender. Like I look at it as a different way. I look at it as that's a guy that in a small market like Memphis, like it's very hard to get those guys and keep them long term in places like this. And so signing Jaren to a long-term extension and paying him a lot of money, like I'm totally cool with that. And obviously it goes without saying, I want to be committed long-term to Ja Morant too. Yeah. So I think it makes complete sense. Like, I wish that Desmond Bane could have been a part of this. Yeah. But obviously the numbers just don't work out for those 3 long-term.
And because the numbers don't work out, you got to figure out a different way to go down this path.
Yeah, so next move, I say that they're going to make a big free agent splash. I don't think that they're going to...
They don't have
I've been on the record on this show saying I think we got to temper our expectations. Like, I don't think the bar should be Giannis and Kevin Durant.
But that's like making a trade for somebody. That's not like free agency. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. They're gonna have to go. They're gonna have to go get somebody from somewhere else. Is what you're saying?
Correct. But again, I think as a fan base, we should temper our expectations a little bit. Like the bar should not be Giannis and Durant. Like let's just go for like a really good starting caliber player. Like I'm cool with that.
Somebody better than your best player. Like I don't think we're going to go find somebody better than our best player.
I think you're right.
You know?
I think you're right.
Even though some people say Ja's not a top 40 player in the NBA.
Now, do I think that they are trying to be in the Kevin Durant mix? Yeah, I do. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But yeah, I do think that they're trying to be in the mix there.
Being in the Kevin Durant mix doesn't necessarily mean Kevin Durant ends up on your team. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
No, good point.
Yeah, like being in the mix might mean you come out of it with somebody else.
Yeah, maybe it's a 3-team deal, something of that. Yeah, we see a lot of that.
We've seen the Grizzlies do that a few times in the past.
Okay, so the draft real quick. You mentioned we got our draft show coming up next week, which is obviously the stakes are a lot higher than they were.
Yeah, I was excited because Gary and I have spent so much time filming those things the last month. And most years I kind of go into the draft like with no knowledge of the players. I've watched all these guys now, and I know all about them, and I know who's good and who's not. And honestly, I've heard Gary talk about all these guys, so I kind of know like different stories, who might be a good fit, who might not be a good fit. If you're drafting at 16, there's some sort of interesting names out there that might, if the Grizzlies use that pick, might be a good fit for this team. I don't know.
So it hasn't been updated since they. And I'll be interested to see who you like. But this is Gavoni at his last mock draft had the Magic at 16 taking Jace Richardson, and he's talking about the needs for Orlando. Right, the Magic needs shooting in the worst way, but also saw their lack of backcourt depth exposed with the season-ending injury to Jalen Suggs, which forced them to start Corey Joseph in the playoffs. And so he suggested Jace Richardson out of Michigan State.
Good shooter.
Yeah, combo guard out of Michigan State. Good shooter, 48% from three. Good defensively, and kind of knows who he is as a player. That was a comp that Gavoni gave to him. Right. I look at that from a Grizzlies perspective, and I'm like, that's exactly what we need.
Well, let me ask you this. You said you didn't want to start Pippen and Ja together. Why?
The small backcourt. Fair enough.
Jace Richardson measured 6 feet tall without shoes at the Combine.
Well, there you go.
Gary's point with Jace Richardson was that he started the year on the bench at Michigan State and ended the season as their best player.
Yes.
So clearly figures things out, puts in the work, all that stuff. The size thing is what gets me too. I also don't like a lot of people in this draft world that I've been swimming in for the last month are linking him to the Hawks at number 13. And apparently the Hawks have a lot of interest. He's talked a lot of I'm like, well, we got Trae Young. Like, why do we? And Dyson Daniels. Like, there's your backcourt. Like, why would you put Jace Richardson next to him? So, Windhorst meme. Maybe they're going to move from Trae Young. Maybe that's a guy who's out there. I don't know, but Jace Richardson to the Grizzlies scares me from the size thing. Like, because I just feel like you said, you already got Pippen, you already got Ja. Do you really want another 6'1" guy in the backcourt? Unless he could play like backup point guard. Yeah. Sort of like, and then you could run him and Pippen out there together. Maybe your second team is just smaller.
Well, and another thing too, like depending on what they do in free agency, if they don't address the rebounding, which they're going to miss for the first, at least we know first couple weeks of the season probably with Zack Edey out. Do you try to address that with a guy in the draft? Like, do you go get a guy that you can develop? He's kind of a placeholder until Edey comes back. If BC's that starter, if BC's still on the team, that's something I think that could be interesting too. They got a lot of different ways they could go with this.
Yeah, there's a couple bigs that are like, I've seen names get thrown around after the 16th pick, like Danny Wolf's one guy from Michigan, the guy who is good passer, kind of a connecting player, good shooter, all that stuff. I don't know how good he is as a rebounder, but that's a name I've seen. The other like big who's sort of interesting is Maxime Reynal. He's French, but he's played at Stanford the last 4 or 5 years. He also averaged like 6 3-point shots a game last year for Stanford. He's a good shooter. He shot like 36, 7% for a big. He's 7'1", big dude who can actually shoot, like a big guy who can shoot. a lot of these mock drafts have him like at the end of the first round. So maybe the Grizzlies think, I don't know who they're going to look at, but maybe they're like, we'll trade down. There's another guy, Thomas Sorber from Georgetown, a center who a lot of teams have looked at. Or do they go swingman and try to get like a Nick Clifford from Colorado State, who would be an interesting fit here too, as a guy who maybe comes in and can play the three for you.
Man, this is going to be a wild offseason.